Hare Krishna. So my journey to Krishna Consciousness, it began as a young man when I began to question my life and who I was, who am I. That led me to some idea that there was more to life than what I saw around me, but it also left me quite lost. So my first guru in this path to Krishna was Lord Jesus. I met somebody who was a Christian and introduced me to the Bible. I grew up without any real religion. My father is a scientist and my mother is an academic, and they didn't really profess any religion. They introduced me to the Unitarian Church at one time, which is a very kind of non-denominational, everything is good type of approach to spirituality. Not very specific, though linked a bit to Christianity, but I never really adopted or followed any sort of religious path in my youth. And as a young man, I just began to question things and try to understand what was the meaning of life. But I got a bit lost at that point, and somehow this person I met, he impressed me that there was a spiritual path. He quoted a verse from the Bible, which I roughly goes something like, narrow is the path that leads to life, and broad is the path that leads to destruction. And somehow this sank in, that that most people around me, I was looking around, I thought that people are not, they're just living their lives day by day and to death. And I became very interested in developing myself spiritually, but then life goes on. I was about 14 or 15 at the time. More interest in just enjoying the world came up. I became involved in the counterculture movement. I went to college, but I dropped out. Went to live in a commune. I was one of those that are known as hippies. I again met Jesus, this time in the form of an old hippie who thought he was Jesus. Anyway, he taught me more about the teachings of Jesus, and by the time I was about 19 years old, I'd come to believe that the aim of life was to serve God. I'd gotten this idea. But my idea of how to serve God was wrapped up in drugs and this and that, and I had no real direction. I ended up in Canada for various reasons, and I was living in a boarding house, and I got a job, one of my first jobs ever, as a carpenter. And to get to my job, I used to pass the Hare Krishna temple on Beverly Street in Toronto. And as I passed, I saw these people, and I'd seen devotees before. First, I think it was in Berkeley, I got some prasad, a piece of corn. I mean, I can remember this now, that I got corn on the cob from a devotee in Berkeley. I remember actually probably the first, he wasn't a devotee of ISKCON, but he was a student at the college I was going to, and he had spent several months with Srila Prabhupada in 1968, I think it was, typing Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita manuscript. It was part of the way that they taught at this college, and to have some work experience between semesters. And when he came back to my college, he began holding Sunday feasts and chanting Hare Krishna. And I remember meeting him, going to one of these, and I remember talking to him, and he hadn't really understood Krishna consciousness. He was talking about Buddhism and other things as well. But he did inspire my first chanting experience. And my next chanting experience, I remember, was in the car going down to this commune I ended up with, and we all started listening to George Harrison chanting Hare Krishna, and we were chanting for hours. We chanted Hare Krishna in the car. Again, we didn't know anything about what we were doing. I think the other time I met devotees was on the street in Chicago, and I thought they were gypsies, the way they dressed and played tambourines and so on. Finally, I ended up in Toronto. And so I'd seen, as I said, I'd seen the devotees, and I thought, these people must be they look like they'd be receptive to the message of Jesus and the service of God and so on. Let me talk to them, because I was kind of a little bit in the proselytizing mood. And I remember going into the ISKCON Center there, and before I could really even begin to talk to anybody, I was just looking and watching and seeing, and I was struck how and they started talking to me about Krishna and God and what they were doing and how they were using every minute of their life. They were waking up and eating and sleeping and working, all for the service of God. And I was very impressed. I said, these people are living the teaching that I was thinking about. And then they taught me the mantra, this time what it meant. And earlier I had adopted a sort of prayer to Jesus that I used to repeat. And I remember going to a park nearby and sitting down in the park. And I remember first repeating my Jesus prayer, and then chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And I remember feeling a change. Then I chanted my Jesus prayer, and I said, it was pious. It felt right to do, but didn't affect me. And then I chanted Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And I started to become aware of myself as a spiritual being. I said, oh, this is powerful. This is powerful stuff. And I remember coming back to the temple. I remember reading some of Srila Prabhupada's writings and thinking, this person knows God. He doesn't just talk about God, he knows God. And I remember the temple and the atmosphere of the altar and the incense and the mystic feeling of the place. And I remember enjoying prasadam on the Sunday feast. I think it was about 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, that I came a few times and talked a little bit more. And I said, I want to be here. This is where I want to be. This is it. This is everything I've been looking for. This is the fulfillment of the teachings of Jesus that I've been studying. This is a complete life. This is amazing. And so I was allowed to move into the ashram, and at that time they had bunk beds, right, to sleep in the ashram. And I got in, and my bunkmate, the bunkmate above me, I looked on his bunk and I saw this print of the Shroud of Turin. Now I don't know if the audience here knows what I'm talking about, but there's a story that when Jesus left, when Jesus's body was placed in his tomb, he was covered with a cloth, and that when he rose and left the tomb, the cloth was left behind. And there is a cloth which many believe is that cloth. And on that cloth is the image of a person. that came from the oil that covered the body, that had anointed the body of that person, who many believed was Jesus. And I used to carry a little medallion with this image on it. That was one of my favorite possessions. I carried this. And then when I saw my bunkmate have this same picture, I immediately connected. And it turned out he had a similar story. He was a devotee of Jesus, but he saw that here was Krishna, the Father, the one that Jesus tells us to love and to serve. This is him, Krishna. And this is how we do it. We chant his holy name. We serve him. We avoid all violence. We love each other. And we love God, and we love all like ourselves. And so we bonded, and he said, all right, you're here, okay, let's go. And he took me to the next room and got the buzzer and shaved my head. The temple president came a few hours or so. Wait a minute, we usually wait to see if you really want to stay here before you shave your head. But it was too late. I'd done it. And so there I was, and that was how I came to Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.